Trump got a lot of attention over the weekend. Talk about a stimmy check.
I think the $2,000 stimulus check is a chess move. I think it's a chess move with the Supreme Court.
Gold backed up, never touched the 50-day. Silver right into the 50-day. Bitcoin through the moving averages. And now everything is back on its feet.
I was recording my 80-second horrible local rapper demo. And I was like, I now officially hate the thing that I once loved. I know you'll appreciate this.
I've been saying that I think the stock market has more upside between now and the end of the year than precious metals do.
I think you should brand that. We need the wobble gobble. You need the gobble wobble.
The wobble gobble is something that we can brand. I was going to brand Kinky Contango. What is happening, good people? We are here on November 10th to record Macro Dirt Podcast number 71. I've got my man Jared Dillian here and special guest Matt Zeigler from Sunpoint Investments. How are you, Matthew?
What is up, guys?
What is up?
Long time viewer, first time caller. So excited to be here.
Daymaker, man, daymaker. But you know what? We're recording on a Monday, which is odd. And I want to start off on a human note and see how the hell was everyone's weekend? Matthew, how was your weekend? You go first. You're our guest.
Oh, that's the manners here. I'm just astounded. It just feels so good. My weekend was great because I didn't have to travel anywhere. I didn't have to do anything. My wife and I we went to Target and Home Depot.
Done.
And we got stuff done in this house. And it was just one of those things where, catching up on Stranger Things before the new season comes out last night. And I'm like, this is great. I'm eating pizza from one of our favorite local spots, watching Stranger Things, and I got a bunch of house stuff done because I have to go away next weekend. It was amazing. What about you guys?
Fantastic. JD, you?
First of all, is there good pizza where you live in Pennsylvania?
My friend.
Where are you coming at us from? Yeah.
Come visit. Northeastern Pennsylvania, down the road from Scranton, the home of The Office. We got a lot of great history. We can tell stories about that if you want them, but Wilkes-Barre, Scranton areas where I'm from originally. Both my wife and I grew up here, moved away, came back. We are enough in that northeast corner because we're not too far from New York City and Philadelphia. We have an incredible food scene here. I love that nobody knows about. Yeah. Great pizza. All the varieties too, which is the understated part. It's not like one style. We had one of our favorite kind of Detroit deep dish style bastardizations this weekend, but we can go thin crust. It's all here. It's fantastic.
So that's a niche foodie town, huh?
It's a weird niche foodie town that keeps evolving because special thanks to Brooklyn, Philadelphia, everybody else that's continuing their obscene gentrification. They're sending everybody here. So the food that was available when I was a kid was a million great Italian restaurants and Polish places. Now it's we have an incredible sushi restaurant. We've got 3 ramen shops to choose from.
Nice.
Don't tell. Shh, secrets.
I want to spin through there. JD, how was your weekend? What'd you do?
I'm still taking care of my wife after her surgery. So
how is she?
She's good. She's good. So we were kind of cooped up all weekend. I did record a mix.
Nice.
Which I sent to you, both you guys. And I'm pretty happy. I'm very critical of my own music. It's maybe a 1 in 10 shot that I do something that's perfect. And this one is slightly flawed and it just bugs me. But I would love it if we could put the link to the mix in the notes.
Yeah.
So people can check it out.
Put the link in the notes and special shout out because doing stuff around the house. I had some DJ Stochastic rocking thanks to sending that link. Had another buddy who's got a public radio show, John Rinaldi, had his show playing in the background. Doesn't get better than this stuff like this.
Very cool, man. In the background of my weekend, I would say it was in the foreground. I got to watch 2 brothers that are near and dear to my heart, the Welch brothers who play football for Wesleyan University. The eldest of which has been dating my daughter for several years, but their team won their 2nd consecutive NESCAC football championship, which is pretty badass. We applaud achievements and big wins here on the Macro Dirt Podcast, and everybody knows, to win a championship, you need everything to go right. And it was an exciting game. They won 31-28, and so that was awesome. And on top of that, I did a lot of cooking and a lot of guitar playing, and it was a great weekend.
That's fantastic. Wait, what'd you cook this weekend? I'm off social media for a few days still.
I made a amazing roast beef for dinner for my uncle who came over on Saturday night, and I made it with macaroni and cheese on the side. And you make a tomato onion gravy for the roast beef, and you put it on that and the mac and cheese.
Extra toppings on mac and cheese, where it's at.
PG has cooked for me before, so I understand. He's a very good cook.
Yeah, and you have I've gotten like eons better in the last like year or two. I've really dialed in my game. But we don't have to spend all day on that. I thank you for the compliment. I'm psyched for the Wesleyan Cardinals, and it's time to get into markets and learn more about Matt Zeigler. I am really keenly interested, as you were a music major at Hartford College, and I want to hear you sketch your career a little bit about music and then on to where you are right up to Sunpoint, if you could for us, Matt.
All right, the lightning round version.
The lightning round, yeah.
First off, if you go to Hartford and you're in a loud bar and you whisper to, a nice person of the opposite sex or whatever, your persuasion is, and you say Hartford, at least 6 out of 10 times they think you say Harvard.
Right.
You don't have to correct it. You just let it go.
That's true. I agree. You let that go for sure.
So I grew up in one cool part about this area is that this is a really cool music and arts community because of where we are in between the cities. So we had like a booming independent music scene. It was just a cool thing to do if you were a kid, and there were all ages clubs and places that we could go and play. And I had this amazing experience of being like, I want to play guitar as a kid. And then you find out, I'm 15 and I can start playing shows in front of all my friends and like at a real place. And so I grew up doing that. And inside of that too, I grew up with, because just audaciously, you just go out and do these things and you learn to go get yourself booked and get gigs and all this other stuff. I was playing in bands with older people too. And that was like the real gift, was I could play in my punk rock bands with my friends. And then I could play in cover bands that would play corporate events and weddings and stuff like that with a bunch of people 10, 20, 30 years older than me.
Oh, wow.
And it was a wild experience because I never knew I was learning business. People kept telling me I was good at business all the way through college. But it was like, you don't think about all the stuff you have to know to organize a group of people, to get in a van, drive somewhere, play a gig. How do you negotiate for a piece of bar? I learned how to do all this stuff. Had no idea what I was learning until midway through school, when I figured out like, oh crap, I'm making money doing this and all these other people don't know how to do this.
Very cool.
So that turned into, I had a recording studio job. I was touring, doing lots of stuff at the end of college. A little invention called the personal computer kind of ruined everything for the recording studio business in the early 2000s. I understand that now. I didn't know it then. I got really frustrated. I was recording my like 80-second horrible local rapper demo. And I was like, I now officially hate the thing that I once loved. I know you'll appreciate this. I want to tell you the line that broke me, and it's important. I don't know. I wish I knew this guy's name. So first off, the line that didn't break me. So I'm recording this guy, and the first thing he says is, "I've got more hose in the back than a fire truck." And I'm like, that's good. That's funny. I'm gonna laugh. I'm chuckling. I'm enjoying that line. But then he says, "And I'll shoot you in the calves like Cleveland." And it's that thing that like goes into one side of your brain and doesn't come out the other and causes aneurysms, as Louis Black said. Like, I was like, shoot you in the calves. Like, do you understand like the layers of this reference? And I went home. I was like, I can't hate the thing that I love. So the most boring thing I could think of that would take me, people kept saying business. I'm like, I don't know what business is. I don't know what finance or any of this stuff is, but I found a job as a part-time teller in a bank. And I did this for like literally 2 weeks before they were like, you can't balance your drawer. You should not have this job.
Right.
And I looked around that bank. I was like, there's one person who doesn't look like they hate their lives in this room. And he was the financial advisor. And I was like, how do I get that job? And somehow in 2007, 2008, right before the financial crisis, I started this illustrious career in finance with lots of bends, shakes, and irregular lines along the way. And I'm still
very cool. Very cool.
That is cool.
So you never figured out what getting shot in the calves like Cleveland ever meant or anything, right? Because it's still rattling around and hurting me in my head right now.
it's still haunting me that now, obviously this is like the early 2000s, early to mid 2000s. So it's a Cleveland Cavaliers reference. Like they were on a bit of a run, but why he was like the gunshot again. I was like, I can't try to have this conversation with this person about why this is a terrible punchline.
I love it. So you set your sights on the wealth advisory.
I set my sights on it.
I don't know if I ever told you this, Matt, but I used to be a church organist.
I feel like we talked about this because you were a church organist in high school?
In high school, yeah.
All the weird ways you could make a little bit of side money as a musician, especially as an audacious kid who just shows up somewhere and is like, oh, do you want me to do this? It's an amazing racket for a young person that is so much better. I did construction one summer and was like cleaning out asbestos in a basement and all this other god awful stuff. And by that winter, I was playing in this band. I was like 15, making more money than my friends would make in 2 months playing at like a wedding.
That's awesome.
I was, I'm never going back.
All right. So connect the dots here. Musician, financial advisor. How did you get to be one of the Illuminati FinTwit talking heads as a financial advisor and how'd you get to write for Epsilon Theory and all this other stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, this is actually there's a crazy through line to the Epsilon Theory story that I don't get to tell in public very often, and I will gladly put here because this is close to an exclusive, if not an exclusive. I might have only written about this before. So first off, I wanted to be a producer, and that's a key element. So I realize in the 90s when I'm growing up that this job as the producer exists. And Tony, I know you're going to appreciate this. It was like, I'm looking at picture the end of The Usual Suspects when you find out who Kaiser Soze is. And I've got a bunch of tapes and CDs on the floor in my room. And I'm like, Run DMC, Rick Rubin's on the back. Red Hot Chili Peppers, Rick Rubin's on the back. Slayer, Rick Rubin's on the back. Who is this guy? And what is this producer job that allows you to be with Run DMC and Slayer and the Red Hot Chili Peppers and then Johnny Cash? I want this job explicitly. So that's what I'm chasing through the rest of my high school and into college and what I was doing working in a recording studio, hearing such illustrious lines that were not, Johnny Cash recreating Hurt. It was some crappy local rapper shooting me in the Cavs like Cleveland. What I loved about the producer job is you listen to an artist and you're then in this editorial seat, this curator seat, where the artist comes in with his vision and says, I want this to sound a certain way. And as a producer, you're hiring musicians, you're scheduling the sessions, you're helping with arrangements. And I love the idea of an artist could say, if this idea help me express it in a way that's either commercially viable or interesting to me. That collaborative effort is basically what I like. Financial planning or like working with people is a variation on that. Here's my mess. Here's my expression. Here's the thing I'm trying to get out in the world. And now I'm going to help you edit and curate that together in a cohesive message that we go back out there with. Mm-hmm. It took me a long time to figure that out because I didn't know this at the beginning. I didn't know what a stock or a bond was when I started in like 2007, 8 on this stuff. But once I figured out that was the through line, was actually listening to people and shaping the message, that was the thing. So I'm hanging out. I go to Nashville to see a college buddy. And we go to an Epsilon Theory conference a few years ago. And it's a music buddy, which is the critical element on, like, we sat in college lectures. We bonded over a mutual love for the De La Soul is Dead, the second De La Soul album, and then a bunch of like obscure 80s and 90s hip hop stuff that God knows. We were both obsessed with this going to school for, jazz and music production in the early 2000s. So we bond over this. We've stayed friends ever since. One of my closest friends lives down in Nashville. We go to the Epsilon Theory conference. I'm in this room with all these like hedge fund managers and central bankers and just like, I have no business being in this room. At least my friend is like a successful touring musician and all this other stuff. And we're talking about writing and we're doing a workshop with Ben on writing. And my buddy's like, hey, you got to submit something to this. You write every day online. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't write about any of this stuff. And I'm looking at these other people and the submissions and that imposter syndrome thing is like up here. So I go, well, I can't compete on that lens. So what I'm going to do is submit a cultish creative note off my blog about the rapper Ice Cube and about how he gets misplaced in this high school class And that turns into his entire music and film career.
Wow. I'd like to read that.
I will share it with you. So I share this with the group, and it's all these ridiculous essays. And like Ben comes up to me the next day and was just like, we need to talk. And I was like, no. It's like the epsilon theory guy is not talking to me about Ice Cube right now.
Yeah.
As the thing that he wants to talk. And he saw the structure, the bones, the way I put it together, the way I told the story, and was like, you're communicating something that is resonating with a bunch of people in a way that I want help figuring out ways we can do this with epsilon theory. And I was like, well, I'm a 10-year fan and a reader of your stuff. If you want me to talk about where Ice Cube and this overlaps. And hey, today in our joint venture, Panoptica, which panoptica.ai, everybody should check that out. It's like I'm writing about a conversation I recorded with Rusty and Ben, and I turn around and I'm like, all right, what do I want to say about this? And it's Pretty Woman and Fight Club references, but that's the way my brain works. So share it with the world.
Wow.
So be weird. You know a thing or two about that, Jared, right? Don't be afraid to be weird.
And you also wrote the foreword to Rule 62, which was great.
A great book. Great book.
Very cool. Very cool. So he noticed that it was the framework that you had laid over the story that appealed to him, because I can imagine that he was like, there's both the audience capture portion of it and then how it applies to markets, because that, it sounded before like what you were doing and being the producer was oddly similar to kind of what you would be doing as a wealth manager. You know what I mean? Where you're sitting and listening to your investor saying, okay, kind of here's my editorial financial approach to the world. This is how I think we shape the portfolio. Am I kind of onto it a little bit there?
Completely. We're all these weird composite characters. Like all of us have all these slashes and the things we do. The more we get accustomed to looking at those through lines between things that may have nothing. You love cooking. This love of cooking has developed in the last several years for you, right? This wasn't something you did 10 years ago?
100%.
Okay, so that growth curve, that learning style, I am positive shows up in the way that you view some other part of markets. And even if you're not directly connecting it, it's there.
It is. I believe that.
And the key to communicating with somebody like you is, I'm just a wildly curious person, is I'm constantly, the ADHD is on overdrive all the time. Yeah. So I'm always taking this stuff in and obsessing over all these other details. But then I meet somebody like you and it's like, oh, you like cooking? Hey, can I tell you about my friend who made a sous vide machine out of an old cooler with a crazy pump? Because you would love this. I'll get you a picture.
Yeah.
I'll text it. Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. JD, what are you thinking?
Well, I don't know. I think we should start talking about markets.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Markets away.
I want to start with the, Trump got a lot of attention over the weekend and it drove the markets, right? We came out with a $2,000, talk about a stimmy check. And then he said something about a 21st century upgrade to the financial system via the crypto markets. You would think that both of those statements would make precious metals and Bitcoin go bid, and that's exactly what happened. So what give me some reads on what's going on there.
Well, I think the $2,000 stimulus check is a chess move. I think it's a chess move with the Supreme Court, because if the Supreme Court denies the tariffs, then Trump gets to paint the Supreme Court as the bad guys and say, well, we're not going to have $2,000 stimulus checks. Or he just does it anyway, and now we lost $500 billion in tariff revenue, and we have $300 billion going out the door in stimulus checks. And I would not want to own bonds in that scenario. I would want to own gold for sure.
Yeah.
So
brilliant read-through.
The other thing he did was Bill Pulte tweeted about the 50-year mortgage. Right?
This is the big one for me.
Yeah,
under all this, testing all these layers.
So I teach about mortgages in my class, right? And I have an amortization table, and we go through how much interest you pay and all that stuff. So just for background, if you're buying a $500,000 house and you put 20% down, so you're getting a $400,000 mortgage at 6.5%. If you get a 30-year fixed, you are paying $510,000 in interest over 30 years. If you get a 50-year fixed, the payment goes down $300. It goes from $2,500 a month to $2,200 a month, but you are paying $950,000 in interest over the life of the mortgage.
Youch.
Now, some people have said, look, like this is, believe it or not, this is actually a good thing because it kind of turns your mortgage into an IO mortgage, right? Like the first month's payment, like $2,200 is going to interest and $80 is going to principal. So it's basically an IO, and you can just contribute principal whenever you want, and it gives you a lot of flexibility. But the reality is that 99% of people are not going to do that. They're just going to make the minimum payment, and they're going to pay $950,000 in interest over the life of the mortgage, and you never get to own your house. You never get to own your house. I could talk for 10 more minutes on this. I'll give it up to Matt and you guys. So,
Matt, you go ahead, please. What are you thinking about?
All of this is just how do you pull stimulus forward because we're in a market that needs more good news. And I think the White House is very aware of it. I think everybody who's looking at markets is going, what's happening next? We just got through quarterly earnings. We got 90% of companies have reported. We're coming into the vacuum after a rough, last 3 weeks or whatever it's been for markets. And the big question is, now that we're past earnings expectations and guidance and whatever else, what's good to look forward to in this next gap? And I think with the elections and everything else, you turn around and you go, what other pieces of stimulus can we pull forward? This 50-year mortgage thing, financial planner hat on, is insane for all the reasons you just said. I would love to think about this as an amortizing loan and think about it like, here's how we would optimally use an interest-only, an IO mortgage. I would love to think about it that way. Most Americans are not going to do that. The reality is we're looking for any way to add stimulus back to the consumer, make sure that the people who have the money, what's the other stat? It's something like 10% of the consumer, the K-shaped economy stuff. 10% of the consumer right now is 50% of consumption in the US. We need to make sure the value of their houses doesn't go down on their balance sheet. We need to make sure the value of their 401ks doesn't go down on their balance sheet. And to do that, you need to pull stimulus into today from any corner you can friggin' get it. And that's just what this feels like.
Can't argue with that, man. And if you want to look at the reaction, all I'm excited about is that, it got the gold miner bull market back in motion. It pushed gold back up off of 4K, silver straight to $50. You know what I mean? It also created, I don't know, we're not going to give Trump credit for this, but because the three sort of, and then the Bitcoin rallies. So now because the store of value trades have all gotten a tailwind because of this, we're kind of back to the bull market that we came into the year with, where we've got gold miners, uranium miners, solar stocks, semiconductors, industrial miners, all at the top of the leaderboard. And those are the leadership sectors of the entire year. So to me, that kind of gave the stock market its groove back, or at least the risk on trade from where we were. And that's how I'm looking at things. And so far, to do a slight victory lap, JD, if you don't mind, if you remember when we were talking about precious metals, I said you're not going to get gold to touch the 50-day. There's just too many buyers in line. We're going to rally off of here before we go down through it. And that's kind of what's transpiring. Gold backed up, never touched the 50-day, silver right into the 50-day, Bitcoin through the moving averages. And now everything is back on its feet. So we'll see what lasts. This could be a rally that gets sold by Friday, but I like the way that it's taking the risk complex as of now. Comments, please, gentlemen.
What both of you, I'm asking this question, either of you take this, especially in the precious metals side of things. I'm in agreement that this is optimistic for precious metals. This probably helps. And we saw that bounce off close to the 50. What's the technical setup from here? Do you think it's blue sky above us, or do you think we're going to grind again for a while?
I don't really. So TG was right. We did not get down to the 50-day. I was saying we would get down to the 50-day. It was very nice of him not to call attention to that when he just said that a couple of minutes ago. I don't like buying stuff in the middle of the range, right? And the range here is between 38.60 and 43.60. And we're right in the middle of the range. I don't like buying here because I have $200 of downside. I think the consolidation is going to continue for many months, like many, many months. And as that consolidation continues, those moving averages are going to come higher. The moving averages are going to come higher. So I actually might be right in the end that it does touch the moving averages. It just might be 4 months from now,
Yeah,
So.
that seems possible. If I were to kind of try to unpack it, I'm thinking that, there's two things here. We just got a lesson of this exact chart formation in the uranium market. Uranium market peaked, backed off into the moving averages. We got the big headline between the Department of Energy and Westinghouse, Cameco, Brookfield, sent the uranium markets right back above the moving averages toward the highs, but not through the highs. And then everything got clobbered, right? So we are potentially set up to do that. I kind of agree with JD. I do agree with JD that, first of all, the highs in metal are in for the year, is what I think. But I do think that we can use those highs as the top of the range. Like, I do think that it would be totally normal for gold to trade up to 4,400 again, back off a little bit. And so I'm trying to stay constructive with the bull markets that have brought us here, because they haven't failed yet. So that's kind of my perspective from here, if that's fair, Matt.
Give me metals now compared to the miners, because the miners' results, earnings, revenues, forecasts are all looking pretty healthy. Do we think that setup's there? Even if gold is upper to range bound, do the miners have more upside?
I've been saying that I think the stock market has more upside between now and the end of the year than precious metals do. Right. I think that we could be set up, first of all, for a Thanksgiving VIX smash that none of the bears are going to be prepared for. I think that could, we've got seasonality that, well, what I loved about the seasonality trade is that November to April is typically the best 6 months of the stock market performance. And then we just started off November with this crazy wobble into support. And I'm like, now it's time for the best November to April performance. And I really feel like we're set up for that. But I'm a bull market trader trying to figure out how to make money at the highs. And that's really hard to do. All I can do is, cling to the positions that I've got and maybe try to add a little bit more to that metals trade if it continues. So that's how I'm looking at it, man.
I think you should brand that. We need the wobble gobble. You need the gobble wobble.
The wobble gobble is something that we can brand. I was going to brand Kinky Contango. Yeah, and then one of my Slack channel members used that as his Twitter handle. He's like, "I'm stealing that. I am now at Kinky Contango. Thank you very much." So I thought that was pretty funny. What do you guys think about stocks? Any pick a sector, pick the S&P, pick tech, talk about AI. What do you think about the stock market, Matt?
So I think the story right now is figuring out what the hell is going on with these earnings expectations going into next year. Because
broadly or in...
I'm going to say broadly at first, because this is the part that I'm still trying to unpack in my head. I would love your guys' perspective on this too. It looks like we have another year, 2026 forward expectations, where revenues, earnings for the S&P are pointed in the upward direction again. We're coming off of 2 strong years. Solid, not crazy above average, but solid expectations. The Russell 2K small caps, especially quality small caps, revenue and earnings looks like we could see like upper teens, low 20s in both revenue growth and profitability, even more so on profitability, which is really interesting for the value plays in there. But then on the NASDAQ, it looks like revenue's tapering off on growth, and we got some earnings. And this flip of how we're looking at the growth side of the equation versus the value side of the equation, my experience in this industry is like, I'm always scared when that happens because value shouldn't be so tempting, but something's flashing tempting in here. And I'm curious how you're breaking down that difference between market, growth stocks, small cap.
Great question, Matt. So to reframe that, we're trying to see, Matt, what what our thoughts are small cap versus large cap, and what it means for different sector moves, et cetera, et cetera. I can stay really bullish the S&P under these conditions, right? We've got absurdly cheap energy for the strength in industrials right now. We're heading toward lower rates. And I don't leave out the fact that we've got a business-friendly president, because I believe that overall attitude is really important to a stock market rally. Now, I'm going to say that I like the idea of that cocktail being bullish for small cap stocks, which have just been bottled up in a consolidation for a while now. And I feel like they've had the pressure of having, some rate scares to the upside that they had to live through, et cetera, et cetera. So I could stay bullish the smaller cap stuff, where I feel the big cap stuff like Mag 7, I feel like if we have a real bull market rally, it's going to be led by specifically these store of value trades where there's going to be metals and mining, uranium miners, industrial miners, and then the sidecar is going to be semiconductors. And it's really going to be more about the AI rally than it is going to be about the Mag 7 rally. And I think that stuff can be kind of sideways, where I think that if people or portfolio managers say, we have to raise our allocation to small caps, like we're raising our allocation to gold because of the changing atmosphere, I could see it panning out that way, if that's a fair answer to your question.
Well, I got a couple things on that. So first of all, gold miners, with the exception of like Newmont and Barrick, are small caps. They're all small caps.
Yeah, fair.
So if you get a rally in small caps, it's going to help gold miners, And when GDX was trading at like 19 3 years ago, like it was a lot of it was because small caps were just in the shitter, Yep. So the other thing I want to point out is global small cap value, not US, international small cap value is up 36% this year. So small cap value is working everywhere but in the US. Now I've taken advantage of that. I actually have an ETF that's international small cap value, but outside the US, small cap value is ripping.
Why?
I have some theories, but nobody really has an answer. Maybe Matt's got an idea.
I'm gonna give you the behavioral thing that whenever I think about growth and momentum, and whenever I think about value, and this doesn't entirely explain it, but this is where my brain goes when I hear that. Momentum and growth is always, you have to look at the underreaction to good news. And it's critical that people are underreacting for good news to press that momentum further. Value works in the opposite direction, where value is always the overreaction to bad news. And I think with international small cap value, we went from dreadful, awful, no good, terrible, very bad day to that's pretty crappy. But that marginal difference of awful, unlovable to pretty crappy represented a lot of friggin' upside and just normalizing some of those still insanely low multiples. I don't think we've had that in the US yet. And that's what I'm curious with Tony's point is a business-friendly administration, is improving fundamentals like access to energy and stuff like that, the thing that moves US small cap from these kind of suck, PE wouldn't even buy these lousy companies, and roll them up into something into, maybe they're just not so bad. And maybe that's a 30% swing.
Man, understanding that nuance is why you can write about Ice Cube and also be a financial advisor at the same time. Because
you can do it. Put your ass into it.
Thank you. Dollar bills, y'all. Dollar bills.
Fucking hey, man, like the shot to the Cavs in Cleveland. Unbelievable. I like that. Okay, so what do you want to be long now going into 2026, Matt?
Well, not private credit in any excessive way. There's all sorts of weird stuff going on there. I think you got to be really smart about that exposure still. Same thing, like high quality bonds with some duration. Don't give me any 50-year mortgages, please. I'd like to avoid that. So this is my anti-answer first. But then I still think it's the same thing. You gotta own the S&P. You probably don't want to just own Mag 7, or you don't want to just own tech. You want to broaden out the exposure to the other 493 in some way. That probably means your Russell or your small cap exposure needs to be on the table. And I'm still going to say look internationally, because I think that we finally have a system designed where they're trying to make positive investments in the rest of the world and saying the US is no longer the ally, partner, or whatever that we had before. There are animal spirits stirring. And that international allocation, I think, still has to be on the table. Do you guys know Rupert Mitchell at all? Have you guys ever had Rupert on?
No.
Rupert, Blind Squirrel Macro. You should have him on. Great guy. He's down in Australia. Rupert just gave me the bull case for not only his trip. He ran strategy for a Chinese EV company years ago. He was an investment banker, cracked lots of emerging markets, did stuff like that. He's great for perspective on outside of the US thinking. And he basically said, in China, and I'm not saying you should go invest in China, but this is just interesting to me for where those tailwinds could be. Nobody's talking about tariffs. Nobody's worried about any of that stuff. We're going to build manufacturing here cycle that started in 2015 is playing out exactly as planned, and people are thrilled and all bulled up. And on top of that, his best idea was like some crazy closed-end fund they're going to launch to crack the Uzbekistan market on the London exchange this year. He's like, go read everything you can on the Silk Road right now before January, because all these other trading partners with China that nobody's talking to are back in vogue in Europe once in. And that's again, underreaction to good news that's waiting here for us. I'm not pessimistic at all going into next year.
You and me both, man. JD, are you pessimistic going into next year?
I'm always pessimistic.
You
know
are
me.
sourpuss.
Yeah,
cranky.
I am. You're a bull market trader. I'm a bear market trader, and but in spite of being a bear market trader, in the last 5 years, I beat the S&P, not by a lot, but a little bit. A lot of that's because of gold, but a lot of that's because of international. Colombia is up 45-50% this year. I'm so bullish on Latin America, I can't see straight. Ex Mexico, I'm not bullish on Mexico, but like ex Mexico, like Latin America is incredible. So
very interesting, man. And I got to say, I don't take my eyes outside of the U.S. border when we've got, my wheelhouse sectors exploding at the beginning of what I think is a multi-year bull market in gold miners, in industrial miners, in uranium miners. If anything, the air has got to come out of the AI ball at some point. And I think that when that happens, that's even more incrementally bullish gold miners, industrial miners, and things like that. We've got the whole AI adjacent energy trade bull market to chase down. There's so much good stuff going on during the Trump administration in the US that I've kind of got noise cancellation on for outside of our border right now.
So the critical part inside of that, though, is you're laying the framework for, and this is what I see too. I see all these opportunities for rotation inside this market.
Yes.
100%. I don't see everything piled in. I see we can pass this baton 6 more times. Yeah. And unless this private credit BDC thing turns into a full-on crisis, which it has the potential to do, that is there behind it because of the amount of lending that's tied up in that and how much of it is shadow versus known. But if that doesn't bring us down and we do stimmy, you could pass this baton a lot of times right now.
Can we talk about the baton that we just illustrated exactly what you said, Matt, if you remember. So when we had the blow off top backing off in precious metals, right? Uranium miners got crushed. Industrial miners got crushed from the highs. Gold miners crushed from the highs. Now, if you were a stock market bear looking for the index to curl over, you needed all asset class and all sector selling to transpire. What happened when those 3 leadership sectors got stuffed? Rallies in semiconductors, aerospace and defense, solar stocks, social media, they all saw inflows and they all rallied. So that's when I look at the tape and I'm like, if you're a bear, how can you live with yourself? Like, you get no out whatsoever. The 3 leaders are curling over like mad and everybody's saying, okay, we're going to buy everything else right now.
That's not money fleeing risk assets. And
yeah,
that's
no,
not
exactly.
A bear market.
Right. That is not scared money. That is money being put to work smartly, and why I can't get bearish. It's perfectly like you said, plenty of time for the baton handoff rotation to ratchet the index to higher prices before it backs off.
Underreaction of good news. That's what we need to keep the thing moving forward. It's when that stumbles and it starts to go in the other direction, when that common knowledge happens where everybody goes, now we're all officially scared of this thing and talking about it. Yeah. We just haven't had it yet.
How big of an effect do you think Bessent is having on this administration?
Oh, geez. That's a JD question. What do you think? You've thought about this way more than I have, JD.
I think Bessent is full of shit a lot. What I was thinking the other day was, I wonder if the 50-year mortgages are a path to 50-year bonds, which Mnuchin tried to do twice when Trump was president. Get 50 and 100-year bonds. And, there was a working group that came back. They said, there wasn't enough pension fund demand, whatever. If you're going to have, if you're going to securitize 50-year mortgages, you're going to have 50-year MBS. You need a point on the yield curve to benchmark this off of, which means we're going to need 50-year bonds. So I think that's probably the next thing that's going to come out of Besant. But the problem is that we should have done that when the 30-year was at 1%,
Yeah.
and now the 30-year is at 4.5 or whatever. So
very good point.
Who are your go-tos for Treasury policy, issuance policy? Who you guys pay attention to the most for stuff in this area? Just curious.
I don't know that I really pay attention to. I'm sure there's somebody on Twitter.
You know who I love to read? Mike O'Rourke at Jones Trading. He's got a great command of the bond market, and that's kind of how he looks at the world through. So that's one of my go-tos. I could try to hook you up with him if you don't read him, but he's one of my favorites. He's just, he's a guy who's a sales trader that sits on a desk and has a lot of experience. Larry McDonald is another guy on Twitter that's really helpful to me in the bond market. He's okay. He comes from that market as well, and he's got a masterclass command of it.
I think these areas, and this is the interesting part about Besant, where he wants to push that envelope, and he's open to pushing that envelope, make for really interesting discussions on not just policy, but portfolio positioning. And that's why I'm asking, because I feel like if we're going to make another push, if they're going to push this 50-year mortgage situation, and there's a lot of stuff to suggest that they're going to push forward on this thing, then we're going to see some changes in Treasury issuance. We're going to see some changes in other stuff too. And I want the people who can think all the way through that problem. Like, shout out to Kevin Weir. He's always writing about this stuff when nobody else is. Same thing with Cullen Roche too. But you need those people who can think of those outside of the box scenarios.
Good point, man. Good guidance. And with that, we are going to take it off market now. This is an extremely long Macro Dirt podcast, but it's been an amazing conversation. And so I'm not really flinching. And JD, anything on markets, or Matt, anything on markets, or forever hold your peace in this podcast? Let's talk about music. We've got a music major here who's still obviously a musician and following it. Matt, what are your early influences, and who do you listen to now?
Okay, early influences. Geez, let's go all the way back. So mom had the 45 collection. So there was a lot of Jackson 5. There's a lot of old Michael Jackson and like Johnny Cash next to each other. So I was the thing with like the stack of 45s. That a random group, both of my parents grew up in big families. We're also compressed generations. So like my parents had me when they were early 20s. Their parents had them. They're the oldest kid. They had them when they were late teens, early 20s. I was at all of my grandparents' 50th birthday parties pretty much growing up. Very cool. All these kids, all this stuff collecting 45s. I feel like I had the Spotify experience before Spotify was a thing.
Yeah.
Where you could put J5 and Johnny Cash, like Boy Named Sue and ABC 123 were like, I could put both of these records on.
Yeah.
And I see no problem or difference with that.
Very cool.
What was your first concert ever in your life?
I'm going to give my first real concert in the sense of like, so I think it was 7th grade. Me and Jeff Harris go see Collective Soul, great opening band. This band Rust, who is an outstanding and underrated 90s like grunge band. But we go see Collective Soul, crowd surf for the first time, local college in town. And it was just like, how do I do that? Because it was so cool. Now here's the crazy thing. Full circle moment on my 21st birthday, like however many years later, that is 8 years later or something like that. I get to record Collective Soul and tell them this story.
Wow.
Doing an acoustic set. And I was like, it's like, funny thing. This means a lot to me that you're here with me today.
Incredible. What did you record? What were you doing? How did that happen?
The recording studio I was a part of, shout out to it, it's no longer there. It was in Hartford, Connecticut. It's called Planet of Sound. This guy, Miles Mangino, ran the place. Great person, great human. Gave me a job from an internship. Also, kind of like the Ice Cube piece, I got a job because after a session as an intern, I started vacuuming, and he came in and was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, well, we got a session tomorrow, like 8 a.m. or 10 a.m. It's like 10 o'clock at night. There's pizza crumbs and chips and all this crap over the control room. Like, obviously, I've been on the other side of this as an artist paying money. If I walk in and the place is a mess, you're messing with the feng shui of the whole situation.
Yeah.
And then we ended up as partners after some stuff like that because I would vacuum. So we were working at the studio. We had an agreement with WCCC, great local rock affiliate in the greater New England area. And we had an ISDN line, which not everybody had at the time, which was the fancy high-powered connection so that you could broadcast onto radio or tie into the radio station for live things. It was like the fastest. It was fiber for that era. And so every touring act that would come through, we would do these special features and host like a live set. And I have all sorts of crazy stories about people I got to record these acoustic sets with in the early 2000s.
Man,
my three first concerts were Elton John, age 5, Neil Diamond, age 7, and Julio Iglesias, age 7.
Wow.
Oh my God. How many times have you been back to see Julio since, though? Be honest.
Interestingly enough, I'm friends with a guy who's friends with Anna Kournikova. And obviously she's married to Enrique Iglesias. So I'm like 2 or 3 times removed from
You are
Julio.
A step away.
So, yeah.
Very cool, man. My first was Barry Manilow at Nassau Coliseum when I was about 12 years old. My mom took me. That was like one of her favorites. She took me and we went with one of her friends and she took her son. And I was pretty hooked on the atmosphere and the excitement from then.
Oh my God, yeah.
Did he play Mandy?
Yeah, absolutely he did.
Yeah.
And then as a free range Gen Xer, I was, going back to Nassau Coliseum by the time I was 14 and 15 to see Judas Priest, Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden. That was kind of my wheelhouse and the stuff I cut my teeth on as a kid. And so that's where it all started, man. Really, really wild though, right?
I have a good Zakk Wylde story for you. You ready for this?
Oh yeah.
Actually, two good things. So first off, got to record him a couple of times, which is awesome. Him with an acoustic guitar, if you've never seen it, is actually quite magical. He's killer. So the first time he comes in, so the way that this would go is the handlers and the people would come in first. And they make sure everything's set up or whatever. Sometimes they get there in advance. We'd be hanging out in the studio waiting for them to come. So Zakk Wylde's coming in. I'm all excited to meet this guy for all the obvious reasons. And so the people come in, there's this commotion, there's stuff going on. And all of a sudden they're like, where is he? And nobody can find him. And so now I go walking through the studio to try to figure out where he is. We were on the 3rd floor of this old warehouse building kind of in the downtown area. And there was a restaurant, a bar, and other stuff that we were all kind of on top of and the various things. I find Zakk at the top of our fire escape in the back. And he's drinking at 10 a.m. and he's peeing off the balcony. onto some guys cleaning out the restaurant in the downstairs who are now screaming up at him. And I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be a hell of a Tuesday.
Oh my Lord. That is classic. Good grief.
So the other cool thing they had was the guy who he auditioned for Sabbath with, they were the 1 and 2 runners up to get into the band. Oh, and the other guy was from either Springfield, Massachusetts or New Haven, Connecticut or somewhere like that. And they got the two of them together and they talked to each other and they were like, either of our lives could be going the other guy's way right now, sliding door stuff.
Yeah, that is pretty wild, man.
I wish that recording of that conversation existed somewhere. I've searched for it so many times because it was pivotal. Shoot you in the calves like Cleveland. Still in my brain, pivotal.
Now, I'm assuming that, are you a guitar player or do you play other instruments?
Guitar is the main instrument, has always been.
Got it. What do you play? What kind of guitars do you own? How many do you own?
This contentious issue.
Don't tell your wife kind of thing? Yeah.
She knows what's in the storage space right now versus what's in the house.
Oh, God,
and last time we moved, she was not seeing those in the basement of the last house and seeing them while we're moving was, how many are here? It's don't ask that question.
So what's the number?
I don't actually know what the real number is right now. I've got 3 that are, it's 12. It's not 100. It's a reasonable amount. 3 come out all the time. There's a Martin acoustic that I love. There's my 335 that I bought when I was in high school. So when I was 17,
yes, 335.
It's the semi-hollow. Think what BB King plays, kind of like that type of deal.
Yeah, Back to the Future guitar. Yeah,
the Back to the Future Chuck Berry guitar. Not with the Bigsby. I had something else with the Bigsby for a long time. Worst thing to restring in your life. Yeah, but I got the 335 and the Telly. Those are my 3 that get regular
Very
action.
Cool.
What about you?
I have a Fender American Stratocaster. That's often on my lap. And then I have a beautiful Gibson Les Paul custom 2001 black that is an absolute Ferrari, and I have a Gibson Songwriter acoustic guitar.
Fantastic.
The Les Paul is my favorite, though, by a mile.
How heavy is yours?
Christ almighty. It 30 minutes standing up and you got to sit down. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know the exact weight of it, but it is like tying a refrigerator around your neck.
Let's say that. You said it was like a 2001?
Yeah.
Yeah, those things that's a wrecking ball around your neck.
But it feels so good, though. You know what I mean? You can also feel that in your hands. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so that's why the connection is real.
It's a real thing, man.
Who are your favorite guitar players? I got to hear this. And then we're going to wrap it up.
All right. So favorite guitar players growing up, obviously I got raised on, like the Jimi Hendrixes and the Stevie Ray Vaughns, which can go no wrong. I will still go back. Probably my favorite blues guitar player is still Freddie King. I absolutely love the chicken picking style. I think he's the best, obviously huge influence on Stevie Ray and whatever else.
Yeah.
With Jimmy, I think Jimmy is probably one of the most important guitar players of the modern era, but I think you have to understand him on the continuum from the Curtis Mayfield stuff through what he did in the Jimi Hendrix Experience, and then Band of Gypsies, wildly underrated because of there's more stuff I could talk to Jared about with like the house music and the textural things on those Band of Gypsies albums, like Buddy Miles and what they were doing sonically is, had he not died, I think he would have changed music as much as Prince did in the period that followed. Great and the modern guy who I just saw, Isaiah Sharkey, Spanky, who was my favorite like gospel modern era guitar player, and he's like the king of the jazz crossover to everything else thing. This guy Isaiah Sharkey is a god amongst men. I just saw him in New York a couple of weeks ago with Robert Glasper and the group. That guy can do anything and is my favorite living guitar player right now.
Wow, that's badass. I never even heard his name. I got somebody to dig into now. JD, who are your three favorites? And then I'm going to go and we're going to figure out where to find Matt and break off.
Dude, guitar players? I
wanted to put you on the spot and watch you squirm. Can you name three guitar players is the next question.
Ralph Macchio.
Nice. Very good.
Yes.
Very good. Eddie good.
Sweep the leg.
I'll steal the mic and I'm going to rip right through them. My three favorites that haven't changed much over the years. It's Eddie Van Halen, who is the reason I picked up a guitar. Derek Trucks and Slash. Slash as a guitar player is somebody that the more you learn about how he played and how the sounds came out, the more you love the guy. And I think he is absolutely one of the best rocker guitar players of all time.
I got one more story
that into him in an airport lounge.
Slash?
Yeah, you told me that. You mentioned that to me before. That's great. Yeah. What were you going to say about him? What do you think of him, Matt?
No, so there's another thing that'll never leave my head. I'm in this music class. I just transferred schools. I'm in middle school. I'm in this music class and like there's guitars. And I already play guitar because I started when I was a real little kid because my mom's siblings all played. So all I wanted to do was play guitar from when I was like 5. I had one in my hands and I'm starting to pick around with stuff. So I'm in this class and we're talking and the music teacher is like, who are your favorite guitar players? To a bunch of like 13-year-old knuckleheads. It's like me and like 5 guys. And one of the kids, this kid Tony, is like, like Slash. And the teacher just kind of like puts his head in his hands. And he's like, you could have said Jimi Hendrix. You could have said, he was like, no, Slash is the best. He's better than Jimi Hendrix. He goes, what? Would he pick the guitar with his heroin needle?
Fucking cool.
And I've never figured out what adult says that to a bunch of 13-year-olds. But I've thought about it a lot over the years.
Unbridled, man. Unbelievable.
Teach the children.
Classic. Holy smokes. What a great convo, man. We just did a tour de force macro dirt podcast there that spanned the length of an hour. It felt like 5 seconds recording it. So we must have covered some great subject matter in a great way. And Matt, thank you so much for joining us for this extended convo. Please tell our audience where we can find you if we want.
If you want to find me, it's Matt Zeigler, I before E, except after Z, as my mom, grandmother, father will all tell you and celebrate. I'm there on LinkedIn. It's at Cultish Creative on Twitter. And my personal site, cultishcreative.com, is where I do all my stuff. I've been publishing daily for 8 years now. I think real soon, right around now. So we got a good streak going on. Check me out there. That links to all my YouTube stuff and everything else.
We're going to stack all of that in the comments, make sure everybody can find you. Say thank you so much for recording an amazing, amazing Macro Dirt podcast. And we'll catch you on next time around for sure.
Oh, we got more to do, fellas. This has been an absolute treat.
Exactly. Well, that's the first 1 hour Macro Dirt. So hasta la pasta, good people.
Hasta la pasta.
Thank you, Matthew.